Hey, they say that they winning, but to me it's just a blowout. Hey, every week we putting numbers on the board, we show out. Hey, all it took was just a bit of patience with the grind. You can never hold it back. Hey,
in this game already.
Oh yeah,
long-awaited Drive the Lane debut. Adam Jardy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm sorry that literally everybody else in the Ohio State basketball world canceled on you.
No, that's far from the truth. You know, we've it's been a long time coming, so we're excited to have you on. A long-awaited debut is a great way of phrasing it, especially considering the timing. We were just talking about it before we started recording. No one sees Ohio State more than you do, and obviously the year is coming to an end, and the Big Ten title hopes also came to an end yesterday as well. We're recording this the day after the Maryland game. I guess we might as well jump right into it and talk about the most recent game. I watched from afar. So did Andrew. Is that the worst performance of the year so far?
It's probably the most disappointing. When I think about games where they've really struggled, like the game at Indiana was, I think of that one very similar to this one, where it just kind of got away from them and they were never able to mount much of a challenge down the stretch. I think the Iowa game at home was a tough one, even though we're seeing that Iowa was a better team than I think we expected. I think that one's going to stick with people based on when it happened during the season. Honestly, the Florida loss, that was a tough one too. That was, they led that game for the duration and it was theirs for the taking, and then they lose on a buzzer beater. So there have been some tough losses this season, but I think with everything that was at stake, and sure, they could have won out this week and they still might not have, captured a Big Ten title, but you had a lot to play for, and it was certainly a tough pill to swallow that they played a game the way that they did.
How much of the result of the game do you think has to do with how condensed the last few games have been? And then even though the games scheduled for, this week haven't happened yet, you see those games on your schedule. You see you only have one day. So how much of an impact do you think that has had?
That's definitely part of it. I'm surprised that they kind of had the effort level that they did. That I thought that we got peak Kyle Young in that game. I think that if you're watching the game, you saw Kyle doing basically everything that he could to will them to a victory, but they just didn't have enough from other guys. And some of that sure is, you and Joey, you know what this was like. You had a huge emotional, crazy win on Thursday. It was a 9:00 Thursday night game on the road. So you're getting home at 4 a.m. the next morning, and then you're going to go play a team that, like, this was a huge game for Maryland. That 2002 team was back. That team is beloved. Gary Williams gives a speech to the team. Like, there was a lot of juju in that arena for Maryland. But I kind of thought that Ohio State was at a point in the season where it was ready to handle that kind of stuff thrown at it. We've had a lot of talk in the last few weeks about how this is a player-led locker room, and these guys know, they've been through the battles and they know what to expect. And it was surprising to me, not necessarily that Ohio State lost, but I guess more how they lost, because they just didn't seem like they had the fight necessary. And I did not see that from this team at this part of the season.
I think disappointing is probably the best way to view this loss, not the season by any stretch, but the loss for sure. To me, obviously we are on different sides of the court, right? And I view everything that happens in a different way than both you and Andrew do, even though you guys probably view it in different ways also. In my opinion, it's really, really real that guys get tired at this point of the year. Yeah. It's really real because they've been working out as hard as possible not since October when games start. Like, they've been doing it since June and even May in some cases if they don't have a good year in the NCAA tournament. In your opinion, I know Andrew just asked about fatigue in general. I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit. Is it on the guys, or is it on the coaching staff, or is it, there's really nothing to be said. It just happens to everybody.
I think you have to spread it around, because I think as a coaching staff, you're probably trying to figure out the best way to push the right buttons, keep guys as fresh as you can while also still getting in the work that you need. And I think that is like a two-way trust street, where you're assuming that if we're not going to go super hard for 4 hours today, that we're going to get what we need from it, and guys are going to be able to then apply that to the next game. And the players weren't able to do that in this game. And I don't know ultimately where the full blame falls. Like I said, I think you probably spread it out a little bit because you have to trust at this point of the season that guys are going to understand the gravity is that a word, gravity of the game and like what's at stake, and they're going to be able to rise to that. And I think certainly some of that falls on coaching, but certainly some of that has to fall on like the individual accountability from players too, that you need to find a way to give more. I said it's not so much that they lost, it's that the manner in which they lost. They were consistently beaten to effort plays and 50-50 plays, and they settled for too many threes and just kind of got out of the things that if you're going to lose this game, I thought it made sense to lose it 62-57, and it was a slugfest the whole way. I didn't see a 15-point loss coming.
So why do you think, and I have my own theory as to why, but why do you think Ohio State, fans, Ohio State Twitter are so quick to judge on a game by game basis, whether it's, players that should or shouldn't go to the NBA or the future of the coaching staff? Like, why is it so game by game? And I mean, I'm kind of coding it, but it's like Malachi only has 13 points. Now he shouldn't be going to the NBA. They lose that game. What's up with Holtmann? Like, why do you think it's so different after every game?
Whew. Okay, let me take a breath here. It's a lot of things. We could start big picture and say that's society now. I mean, I was thinking on my drive back from Maryland today when I had some time to decompress, I was thinking to myself, what would Ohio State basketball Twitter have been like when Thad Matta got to the Sweet 16 and kept losing? How would Ohio State fans have responded in that situation? And how are Ohio State fans responding in the current situation? Like, I think that some of it is just, you have this device in front of you, this technology in front of you, where you have a thought, you can fire it off, and that's the world that we live in. That's not, we're not changing that, and that's never going away. I think that's part of it. I think that it becomes easier to have an entrenched opinion that you believe no matter what people throw at you. I think that's certainly part of it. I think that it's very easy to become a prisoner of the moment and to really fall into, a recency bias situation where like you're just looking for the most recent thing that validates your opinion and you're clinging to it. I think when you're also talking about a fan base that I had a couple of people make the point to me that they expect Ohio State football competes for a national championship every year and is always a Big Ten title game contender and favorite. And Ohio State basketball should absolutely be the same set of expectations. I think there's a fantastic conversation to be had about what the realistic year-over-year expectations should be for Ohio State basketball. Because I think if you're saying that the bar is what Ohio State football does, then I would challenge you to find a program where that's the case.
Ever.
Because it doesn't exist.
There's ever been a run like that.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. There's no program in America where you have a team that every year is a legitimate, whatever list or however long you want to make the list, that team's going to be a favorite to win the championship in both sports. It doesn't, you will have years where that will happen, but that's not a consistent, realistic expectation for a university. And so I think it's fair to expect great things from Ohio State basketball. And there's certainly the resources and the talent and everything there to expect great things. But I think that when you start dealing with the nuances of Ohio State basketball and what Twitter might tell you about the perceptions of the fan base, I think it's a prisoner of the moment at times, and I think it's a direct reflection of the shade that football throws at it and the expectations that come with that. And like I said, there's a lot to get into there.
Yeah, no, you could talk about that for days, and we don't have to because we try to be more of a positive podcast, right? Of course, and the last kind of negative or reflecting question that we'll ask you is about Coach Holtmann, because he gets all the praise, but not enough, honestly. And then all of the backlash every single game, no matter what, doesn't matter. It's all his fault, as it probably should be for coaches. And we talk about it and we are ultra positive and we love Coach Holtmann, and we should, because we're biased and I played for him and Andrew and him are best friends now. And I mean, it should be that way. But from your perspective, can you please tell Ohio State fans what we have in Coach Holtmann?
Sure. I mean, it surprises me how quickly people forget, and Joey, you can speak to this, what it was like before Chris Holtmann got to Ohio State. Because you're coming off the greatest era in Ohio State basketball history. And I recognize that Fred Taylor won a national championship and went to other, Final Fours, and that was unbelievable run. And that's where 1960, that's why 1960 matters to Ohio State. But you look at what Thad did for that 10-year span or so, to me, it's unparalleled. That's the best continual stretch of Ohio State basketball success. And so I think you come off of that, and that if you want to treat that as the baseline, if you want to say that is the expectation, so you're holding the 10-year best period in program history as the baseline. That's a tall ask. So get that out of the way, like right off the bat. If that's your expectation, that's fine, but recognize what that expectation is. So then you put that sort of aside and you look at, well, what has Chris Holtmann done? And it's not my job to sit here at the end of the day and to defend him and to say, oh, he's this, he's that, he's whatever. It's my job to present the facts and, my observations from being around the program and going to the games. One number that was thrown out to me a number of times last night was 667. Chris Holtmann wins 2/3 of his games. And so I was like, okay, well, where does that stack up? Well, since the Titanic sank, the only one who's won more, had a better winning percentage is Thad Matta. So that's a thing. And those are numbers, and that says something about what he's doing. I think it's fair to say that the program hasn't gotten as far as Ohio State fans would like it to in the postseason. And the fact they've not brought home a trophy yet is frustrating and is certainly a concern. But I also think you go back to those first 2 years, Ohio State was projected to do absolutely nothing during Holtmann's first 2 years. And you go to the tournament, you win a game both seasons. Those are overachieving years based on what the cupboard was. No offense to Joey, based on what the cupboard was when Chris Holtmann got to Ohio State, and the fact that you barely had players at that point. And to get to the tournament that year, I think was a significant achievement. And to do it again the next year with what I've had other people around the program say, the worst team talent-wise they've seen in a long time, and to get there and to win another game, those are overachieving years to me. We'll never know what 2020 would have been. His statistics would tell you that was at least a Sweet 16 team. It was the best combination of offense and defense. There's a lot of teams that can claim what 2020 could have been. Last year, there's no excusing. You lose in the first round, you take one of the 10 biggest upsets in NCAA tournament history. You have to own that, and I think that they have. But what's interesting to me is I have people already saying they're another one and done in the NCAA tournament this year. Well, you can't prejudge someone on something that hasn't happened. And I don't understand that line of reasoning where you're already convinced this is where the season is headed. We don't know. The most important part of the season is still, as we're recording this, we're still 7 hours from March. We're going to get there. And I think what Ohio State does in the tournament this year, I think will go a long way toward either adding to or subtracting from Chris Holtmann's detractors. But I think if you set your expectations for Ohio State basketball to be, you are in the contention for a Big Ten title more often than not, you are winning most of your games, you're playing high level games, which we can talk about the non-conference schedule as well and how he's beefed that up, and the tournaments that Ohio State's playing in now. There's a lot of good things there, but you do have these kinds of losses that I understand why they resonate with people. Nobody wants to go to lose at unranked Maryland when they're 5-12 in the Big Ten. I get that. There are certainly frustrating things, and it's not all, sunshine and roses, but I think that based on what he was brought in to do, I don't, there's things to criticize, but I think the criticism goes a little far at this point.
You mean when the same people who are saying Malachi should come back for a second year are complaining that he's never had a one and done?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like how can you be mad that Holtmann's never produced a one and done, and then also be replying on all of our tweets and all of your tweets saying Malachi's not ready for the end? It's like, well, which one do you want?
Well, yeah, and it's very easy to get into circular logic when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to those kinds of engagements. And so I think people have their minds made up to feel one way or another. And I try to present as many facts as I can and as much perspective as I can. And if that's how they still feel at the end of the day, there's nothing to be done about that. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm just surprised that the numbers and the results at this point, that the conversation even is what it is right now, frankly. Now, maybe if they don't lose to Oral Roberts last year, this is probably not even a conversation, honestly. But yeah, it's an interesting point of the season, and it really does put even more emphasis on what's what's right around the corner for Ohio State, because I think this is a really important March to show where they are and where things are headed.
I do think that it really does, in my opinion, having obviously been a student athlete there and seeing, the quote unquote pressure that's on us. I don't think it's a lot, but it's not as much as it would be if we weren't a football school. I think that the fact it goes both ways. I think that Coach Holtmann probably loves the fact that no matter how great or bad they do, the fans only care about how Ohio State football did to an extent. I think that that's something that's intriguing about the Ohio State job in general. And I think that that's something that helps Coach Holtmann, but it also hurts him a ton. I think that people look at the success of Ohio State football every year and think, okay, they're a top 4 team every single year with a top recruiting class every single year with 4 first-round picks every single year. Why can't Ohio State basketball be that? And that's not fair, because for every Ohio State football, there's a Kentucky basketball, and people don't understand that that's how it works. And that's okay. And we don't need to dive into that. But what I do want to talk about a little bit here is the future, right? You said it. We've got, it's the most important March for this staff. And it's a huge March because we're going to lose 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. Who knows, Yeah. So, I mean, looking forward, right? There's some really important games for gaining momentum, and, who knows what happens. College basketball is nuts. You could end up winning the Big Ten somehow, which we all agree we don't think is going to happen, but who knows? Only way to have a chance is to win all 3 of these games. So, moving forward in this stretch into the Big Ten tournament, what are your thoughts for this team?
Well, I think they need to get some of that mojo going again. I think that was a deflating loss, like I said, in the way that it happened. I think there's probably some hard truths that some guys maybe have to come to grips with and realize that, like, if they want to avoid what happened in the postseason last year, that that just can't happen anymore. And I think the way the schedule lines up, like, you have a chance, the Big Ten title is out the window, but I think you have a chance to really go into the postseason feeling pretty good about yourselves. I mean, Ohio State hasn't won 3 in a row in the Big Ten since it started 3-0. And you got a chance now. I mean, you're going to play Nebraska on Tuesday. And yes, Nebraska just beat Penn State. And yes, Nebraska's playing better. You have to beat Nebraska. Like, I'm not doing, I mean, I'm not spending any time prepping, like, what's the big matchup, Ohio State, Nebraska. To me, it's irrelevant. They're going to win that game. If they don't, emergency podcast, like, that's, then it gets dicey. And then, you end the season at home with Michigan State, Michigan. Like, if you're an Ohio State player, like, what better setup could you ask for right there than the chance to close with those 2 teams on your home court and a chance to take that kind of momentum with you into the postseason? Like, that is a thing that is big to me. And so I'm very interested to see how they respond now to coming off this loss. You hear about, like, sometimes a team needs a loss to galvanize it. And sometimes a late season loss teaches you something you can't learn unless you lose in that way. I think we're going to learn a lot about what this Ohio State team really does have deep down in these 3 games, because you got 3 games in 6 days, and then it's the postseason. So what are you made of, and what is that going to carry you into March with? I'm really, really interested to see how they respond as this week goes on.
It's funny because if we recorded on Friday, let's say, we would have been all about, all right, this is the team. They're going to go to the Final Four. This is what they got to do. The blueprint's right there for them. And now it's like, it honestly feels like a completely different season to some people from, Thursday night, as you said, 10 p.m. to where we are right now. For a while, Joey and I were like, all right, they need to find EJ's Robin. They got to find something. And then it's like, all right, they got it with Malachi. But now, like, what else do you think needs to happen? I personally think like Michi's minutes got to be so meaningful when he's in there. He's got to hit some threes. He's got to run the offense well. Like, what do you think is a major key to success from now through the rest of the year?
They've got to start rebounding the ball better. On the defensive end, they've got to keep teams off the glass. That is absolutely killing them. There were a couple of stretches in that game last night in the second half where they forced a miss. Maryland got a long rebound and it led to a 3. And those 3s always go in. And that remains to me like the biggest thing that this team continues to struggle with. And it might be what puts the ceiling on where this postseason could ultimately go, is they give up too many of those opportunities. It was interesting. Chris Holtmann said on his radio show today, he mentioned talking about Malachi and all the great things that Malachi's done, but they're really challenging Malachi to guard or to rebound better because they're not getting any rebounding from the guard positions. And he said Justice Suing would give you like 8 a game. Like, and you're trying to find ways to make up for that kind of stuff. And I don't know that there is an answer in season for, suddenly someone's got to give you what Justice Suing would have given you when it comes to the glass. But when I look at what this team needs to do to get better, their defense hasn't been great all year. It's had some moments, but it's starting to trend back toward not that great right now. If they could clean up some of those second chance opportunities, those numbers improve significantly. And it really, to me, gives them a much greater chance of punching their way out of the first weekend, and who knows what happens from there. But it's got to start in the glass. They've got to find a way to address that, and it's been an issue all year.
We talk about it religiously on this show. It's all about taking care of the ball on offense and rebounding on the defensive end. And it's true every single year. If you want to make it to the Final Four, whether you're Gonzaga or Seton Hall or whoever you are, you got to rebound the ball. You got to take care of the ball. There's no doubt about it. What I want to talk about, kind of the last few things, postseason awards. This team is, they're fighting for a top 4 seed, right? A double bye, which is huge, which means you're going to get some pretty nice, accolades from a player's perspective, which no one really cares about, right? Obviously it's fun. No one cares about it because they'd rather just win the Big Ten. But I've got a couple guys in mind. Talk to us about who you think from this team is going to end up on what XYZ team.
Well, I think EJ's first team all Big Ten. I don't know at this point if he could pass like Johnny Davis for Big Ten Player of the Year, because I just think Johnny's had the year and Wisconsin's had the year, and they're going to most likely win the title. So to me, that's the Player of the Year. It doesn't mean that EJ is not necessarily deserving of it, but I just think head to head, Wisconsin has the better record. Wisconsin is going to bring home the trophy, and all other things being considered equal, he gets the nod. So I think that's the case, but I think EJ is definitely on that first team. I think depending on how these next 3 games go, I mean, Malachi is playing himself under all conference consideration for sure. The argument between him and McGowan's from Nebraska for Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Again, we'll see how these next 3 games go. But to me, when you have one team that's getting a double bye and one team that is the basement, sorry to McGowan's, he's a very talented player. But again, I give the nod to a Branham in that situation because of he's impacting a team that's winning at a high level, and that matters to me. He's also getting fewer opportunities to do some things than McGowan's is because the roster is deeper. So to me, those are the 2 guys that are in consideration. I'm not honestly behind them. I don't know that I see anybody else that's necessarily in the running for any sort of individual award.
I think it's time to make an award like the Kyle Young Award of just like like not MVP, but like most important player, where like this is the first inaugural Kyle Young Most Important Player Award.
Which you give him the David Lighty Award.
There you go. Exactly.
I'd have to go back and look and see what sort of all conference things David Lighty won, but like certainly it's not a hard line to draw between the 2 of them and just how impactful they are to their team's success.
But Jamari might steal that from Kyle Young, though. Jamari might win the first ever Kyle Young Award.
Well, we'll see about that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to being like the all glue guy team, which I know like Seth Davis does and all that stuff. If Kyle Young is not on that, there's 2 things. If Malachi Branham doesn't win Freshman of the Year, we riot. If Kyle Young isn't on that glue guy team, he should have been on this team the past 3 years, but that's neither here nor there. If he's not on that team, we also riot. What do you think about EJ being Defensive Player of the Year? Is that crazy?
It's not crazy. I mean, the impact that he makes at his size and the way that he's able to affect a game, I think for him to win that, though, I feel like his rebounding numbers would need to be better. And if I'm finding nits to pick at that point, I feel like because he's done literally everything else for this Ohio State team and is like the primary reason why, we're even talking about how far this team could go in March. I mean, he's been sensational this year. But I've thought that his rebounding could be higher and he could do a better job controlling the glass in that manner. And that would tell me, let's put him in that conversation. So I think I would put him maybe a step behind, but I'm certainly willing to hear that argument.
And then my last person just to mention, does Jamar Wheeler get all defensive team just out of reputation?
I mean, I feel like probably sure. And I mean, Jamari's been a lot of things for this team. I feel like he hasn't. I had higher expectations.
So did I.
And I don't mean for criticism, but I felt like there have been too many times this season where I've seen guys getting too good of looks and too good of drives that I thought Jamari would have stopped, to where I think he's been important. He's been impactful for this team, but I thought the defensive impact would be greater than what it has been.
I think it's funny because what it really is to me is like, just like people unfairly compare Ohio State basketball to Ohio State football. We went into this season being like, this is the next Aaron Kraft. And anytime you give anyone the Aaron Kraft label, it doesn't matter what they do, they won't meet expectations. So, but I mean, Jamari's awesome. I mean, it's amazing. Who would have thought he would impact the team more on offense than defense? That's what really I think is happening.
You're absolutely right.
He's making threes at a really high level and taking care of the ball for the most part, and creating great opportunities from the point guard spot. And like, I mean, he was great on Trent Frazier. Like he's played great defense, but like, it's weird that he has become more of an offensive guy. Like we joked about it with Robbie Hummel, or at least I did. Like I used to text Robbie all the time about how much I hated Jamar Wheeler, like straight up hated him. I would be watching a Penn State Purdue game and Robbie would be on the call and Jamari would make a three. And I'd be like, of course, he always makes threes in important games. He's so annoying. And then he comes to Ohio State and I'm like, this is our savior, Robbie. I love this guy. You know, it's just, he's just funny. But yeah, it's interesting because, you know, it's a weird year because the Big Ten has 10 guys that could be on the first team. They have 5 guys who could win Player of the Year nationally, let alone in the conference. So I just wanted to get your opinion on awards. Andrew, do you have any other questions before we let them go?
I just have one Big Ten question for you. So you've seen all these teams up close and personal. I, for a while, thought it was Illinois, but now I'm kind of changed my mind on that. Like, who do you think is the Big Ten team with the best chance to win a national championship?
Oh, you know, that drought, man, 22 years now and counting. And my heart wants to say Purdue, because maybe Purdue is just at a point in the season where they're just ready for March and they're done with all of this. And they're just, you know, that happens with teams sometimes. They obviously have the most offensive upside in the league. But that defense is just it's not championship.
It's very bad.
And it's so atypical for Purdue. Just not
so weird.
Yeah, it's bizarro Purdue. It makes no sense. So I hesitate to say them. I don't like the thought of pinning my hopes on a Wisconsin team that I just did not see coming into the regular season doing anything. So obviously I don't know anything about what I'm talking about because I did not think Wisconsin was winning the Big Ten, but I don't know that they're built for a deep run. I don't know that they have the horses aside from Johnny Davis. So I don't.
You're allowed to say nobody. It's turning into nobody for me.
I mean, if you're asking me do I think a Big Ten team could win the national championship this year? At this point, I don't think so. And if I had to pick one, I would probably just say Purdue in the hope that they're going to figure out some defense and they're going to score enough points to win a bunch of 95 to 92 games. But I guess I'm just going to ride with the Boilers.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's such a crazy year. We've bounced back and forth from like 4 different teams. I kind of stand on it is Purdue can't play defense. Illinois is so inconsistent, and they've got their player of the year, quote unquote, candidate is not even their best player on their team,
right?
Which is weird. I mean, Wisconsin, they're just so much of a one-man show. Sometimes that's just scary. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's problems with every single team. So it'll be an interesting March.
Iowa's going to win a few games.
I was literally just going to say that means it's going to end up being Iowa, and Iowa's going to be the one team in the Elite Eight.
Yep,
they're playing the best basketball. But you know, Adam, before we let you go, the way we end every episode is, and you're a pro's pro at this. We want to turn the tables on you, give you the opportunity to ask us some questions. I know we've done this before, but you've never interviewed Andrew, so we're open for some questions.
Okay, so I was thinking about this in the car today.
I love it.
So first one, to the two of you, in your eyes, what makes a good college basketball beat writer?
Ooh.
You can go if you have an idea, Andrew.
Yeah, I like that you kind of just talked negatively about Ohio State, but also positively about Ohio State. You can't have a writer that just pounds them every time they do bad and doesn't praise them every time they do good. It's like a strict parent almost. Like you gotta reward the kid, which in this case is the team you cover. Reward the kid when they do well, but also like, hey, gotta be harsh on you when you don't perform. So I say a good college basketball beat writer can praise the positives and bring up the negatives.
In my opinion, I totally agree. And I will take it a step further. A great college basketball beat writer like yourself, I think that what I love most is that you call guys out on Twitter. You know, like you're not afraid to respond to the trolls, right? Whether they're too positive or too negative. Like it's great because people follow you because they come for the Ohio State basketball content. But you can't be a college beat writer that whether you have a bajillion followers or 100 followers, you can't let these guys that think they log on to Twitter and can send whatever they want, like be all high and mighty and just, not walk all over you, but like can't just tweet whatever they want without repercussions, right? Like a guy today tweets something like Ohio State, only has 10 top, it was some random tweet about how their record in the Big Ten or against unranked teams is not that good. And it's like, well, do you factor in the fact that the unranked teams they play every year are in the Big Ten, the best conference in college basketball? Stuff like that. You just holding guys accountable for these bizarre, weird takes where they're just trying to be negative, just holding the Twitter trolls accountable. That's what I love about you and, guys like Bill Landis and some other guys that are great.
Landis is a troll.
But that's why he gets it. He calls the right guys out. He gets it. So that's what I appreciate.
One of the things I try to keep in mind with that is that they are fans at the end of the day, and fans are allowed to have unrealistic thoughts, and fans are allowed to feel how they feel. And I'm so not here to tell anyone how to feel. But I do think, I like to think that people are coming to my Twitter page to engage in conversation about the program that, I'm literally paid to spend way too much time thinking about. So I do enjoy like getting that sort of interaction. So, okay.
Wait, I got one more thing. Thing. So obviously this may not be as lucrative for a beat writer, but I think I love when they have one sport because then they're more focused on the one
That's
sport.
A great point too.
Not a knock on Landis, obviously, but he does stuff for basketball and football, so it's like we know in the football off season or in the basketball off season, like you yourself, you are probably with players, talking to players' families, this, that, where like someone who does football, their off season is much shorter. So, and that's not like a knock or thing. It's just like, I enjoy having a beat writer that is just one sport focused.
Well, I'm very, very lucky. I legitimately, I tell people this all the time. I feel like I have the best job in Ohio because I go to every game, I'm at every interview, and I don't have to split my attention. And so I can get to know players, I can get to know families, I can get to know people in the program. And I feel like that enables me to tell stories I wouldn't otherwise be able to tell. And I derive great personal pride from being able to do that and just being able to provide a different viewpoint and to be as knowledgeable as I can. And so I appreciate you, I guess, recognizing that and saying that, because that's valuable to me. And so that's cool to hear. Two more, Joey. What was the locker room like after the loss to Rutgers in the Big Ten tournament?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll be completely honest. I thought there was no way Coach Mata was getting fired. That's for sure. That thought never crossed my mind. 100% now, because now I can say whatever I want. I was so relieved that year was over. Oh my God. All I could think about was, I can't wait to go home. I can't wait to give my mom a hug. I can't wait to work out with guys that I like to work out with at home, like be away from my teammates that just the guys who rubbed me the wrong way, the guys who didn't care about winning, the guys who didn't care about it. It was so much relief for me. The rest of the locker room, like, I don't think guys were that mad. I really don't. Some guys were upset, like that was Mark Loving's senior year. Do I think he was happy to be done? I don't. As much as Mark, you probably thought that he didn't care or was ready to get out of there or whatever. Of course he was not happy to be done. I don't know. A lot of guys weren't on that team, but it wasn't necessarily because they graduated, right? They're in that next year. But I think overall the locker room was not happy, but also not super sad. I think Coach Mata was not happy, but also super relieved that that year was over. And I can tell you firsthand that I wanted to be more mad. Like I wanted to be more mad, but the locker room just didn't give that feel. Like my freshman year when we lost games, like guys were upset, but my sophomore year, it was almost like they were used to it,
Yeah.
So, it was weird. I hated that, and I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but I never had ever been on a losing team like that ever in my life. So like,
Yeah.
I didn't know how to feel. But it was nice that it was done and we could get a fresh start and I could go home. Like it was miserable. That whole year was anxiety through the roof, mad, pissed off all the time, miserable, because especially like, for my role, you're on the team and you can't help, right? Like you can practice as hard as you want. You'll never get a chance to go help on the court. So just weird year and weird feelings. That was, and then you go on Twitter and you see Gene Smith, like saying, Coach Mata's our guy. Like that's like, looking back now, anytime an AD or a owner or a GM or whoever says this is our guy, you're like, oh, well, that guy's fired in 2 weeks. So it's almost like I wish I would have known that then. But yeah, that's kind of how the locker room was.
That was an absurd day. I wrote so much that
fun.
day. Last question for both of you. What is your favorite Oasis song?
Wow. Andrew, you want to take that one? Because I don't think I have an answer.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Wonderwall's Oasis, right?
Yes.
Okay, then that's mine.
Fair enough.
I should have prepared more. That's on me.
Are you a big Oasis fan?
What's that?
Are you a huge Oasis fan?
A little, yeah.
You follow him on Twitter, Andrew?
Well, I mean, I follow him, but as I said earlier, I'm so hyper focused on the basketball tweets.
Now I'm looking to see if I have a different one other than Wonderwall. Oh, Champagne Supernova is Oasis.
That's a jam right there.
Okay. All right. I'll take that one.
I can tell you that Noel Gallagher dedicated that song to me at a concert in Cleveland a couple of years ago, and it was easily a top 5 moment of my life.
Wow.
Well, I'm as big of a Bruce Springsteen fan as it seems you are Oasis fan. So
okay,
what's your favorite Bruce song?
Probably Born to Run.
That's the Wonderwall.
That's the Wonderwall answer that you just gave me. So I can't. Yeah. Do you like Brian Fallon? If you're a Bruce guy.
Who's Brian Fallon?
I like Jimmy Fallon.
Gaslight Anthem. He's a New Jersey.
I do know Gaslight Anthem.
Okay. Yeah. Brian's one of my favorites as well.
All right.
We got some homework.
I'll burn you some CDs because that's what the kids still do, right?
Perfect. All
Wait,
right, Adam, this was a blast.
You have to follow Drive the Lane on Twitter. That's like guest code.
Oh, I don't already?
No, now you have to.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Unless I followed you from Andrew or unless I was looking at your page earlier from Andrew Zolden, which you still should follow also, but you definitely need to follow Drive the Lane. I'm not already following Drive the Lane.
Hey, I just spent the last couple of days policing Twitter on all my mentions. I'm not sure that I'm looking to add any more at the moment.
Oh yeah, the last thing
kidding.
you want is some Drive the Lane trolling.
Just kidding.
All right, Adam, this was a blast. Thank you for joining us. It won't be the last time, obviously. We'll see either in Indy or Andrew might come to Columbus. We'll see you around soon. So look forward to it, and let's make these next few weeks a little bit more positive than the last one.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, Joey, you were always great to me as a player and as an interview, and so the very least I could do is come on and answer some of your questions. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you as always. Absolutely.
Tell the Lane parents hi.
Absolutely. Will do. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.